You can't save yourselves, but you can save your legacy.
Hi, this is Gizmo First coming to you today with a head cold, so pardon the voice. Foundation is an epic tale set in space, spanning 1,000 years and blah 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 blah, but I guess the question everyone wants answering when they click a review is it any good? To which I would respond, yes, it's pretty good, but like most of the reviews surrounding it, it's a slow affair. I don't generally do spoiler-free reviews, but here's a quick summary before I get into detail. Yes, I love the books and can say that the series pays homage to those. It looks great, sounds great, and is acted pretty well, which is good as they have a set of pretty well-known actors complementing their younger, lesser-known cast. That being said, they have gender-swapped the living hell out of this series. Gul Dornick, Demerzel, Salvor Hardin, even the lawyer who defends Gul. You might argue that a swap or two was inevitable, but at this point there seems to be no point to it at all, except in the case of swapping either Rach or Gale to allow for a heterosexual relationship to develop, to have us invested more in their fates, which ironically is one of the few things that in these two episodes fell a little flat for me. Now details. I won't outline the entire story because to do so would rob you of some discovery if you don't already know what it's about, but we are now in spoiler territory. It is a story that spans 1,000 years, so some flitting around a timeline is inevitable, and you might be forgiven for being lost in a moment or two, but the first two episodes lay the foundation. You see what I did there? For what is coming. Harry Seldon, the series' main protagonist, is introduced, and the scope of the Empire is also shown through cutscenes to 3 different planets, which are very different from each other. Attention to detail is everything here, and I literally found myself recognizing things and landmarks I had read about before. This is a sci-fi series at its core, and the ship technology, the engines, and the type of travel, the tablets and technology they use on a daily basis all feels grounded in the real world and feasible. The publicity around the series made it sound like Star Wars was inspired by this, but it definitely felt more like modern Star Trek than Star Wars. The difference here being that the slightly darker tone, the orchestral swells and falls, the character progression and all of the smaller elements work for this show, as opposed to Star Trek Discovery, which, let's face it, doesn't resemble Star Trek in any way, shape or form, nor do any of the characters behave in an even slightly similar way to how they would in reality. Check out my previous films for more on that. I and many Asimov fans were worried after seeing the trailer for this series that we would get another modern Trek-ish CGI fest of poorly executed action scenes, lens flares, and pointless combat, and I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised that in fact most of these kind of scenes had actually been played out in the trailers, and what was left was story and exposition, giving those scenes context and depth. I never thought I would say this, but if anything at times, especially in episode 2, I wanted them to move a little bit more quickly. The way it ended was nowhere in the book, however, and succeeded in surprising me. I am not sure I liked the way it ended. Seldon throughout the Foundation trilogy was almost a mythical character, and so it was obvious that he had long since died. In Asimov's final book, Forward the Foundation, however, we got to see how he died, and it was very different from what we see here. If you have seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it came a little out of the blue. There are questions raised whether Seldon's plan and his calculations, which in effect force a whole colony of people to uproot and be banished to a backwater planet where conditions will be harsh, are correct. This leads to his being murdered on the way to Terminus, where the Foundation is to be planted. While I understand the motivations, I find it hard to believe that these kind of doubts hadn't taken root far before the journey, and found it a little jarring that they would take place now. Then Gale is jettisoned from the ship for as of yet unknown reasons to a destination unknown, and that is that. It didn't fail in piquing my interest, and I'm interested where this is going to lead, however. We see relatively little of the actual Foundation in these episodes, and what we do see centers around the Vault, which again is very different from how it's portrayed in the book. Salvor Harding, again gender swapped, is an entirely different character. In the book, he was the governor of Terminus, which by this point had grown to be kind of a civilized colony. Not only do we not see said colony very much here, but we also see that Salvor is not a ruler of any kind, but almost like a hermit living out by the Vault, with a rifle strapped to her back, and the few youths we see are anything but civilized.
You go first and put your marker past the rock. I'll let you touch my tit.
This is disappointing to me from a story standpoint and forces me to concede that the trials they are about to face, rather than be rectified and solved by wit, cunning and outthinking the opponent like in the book, will be more solved by shooting and brute force. We'll see going forward, I guess. That Demerzel is a robot is revealed too quickly, I felt. The Foundation series originally was not supposed to have anything in common with the iRobot series, and weakens the books when it actually happens. Asimov later attempting to tie in all of his novels, characters and visions into one, using the book Foundation's edge, which was, in my opinion, one of his weaker efforts. The decision to have the Emperors be clones overcomes one of the obstacles that made it a hard sell to make this in the first place, and that is that over 1,000 years we would not get invested in villains and heroes if they were repeatedly swapped. Here, Cleon can pop up at will and be the same actor with the same memories of events going forward, and lend some continuity wherever we are in the 1,000-year interim. Clever move, Apple. For all of its ups and downs, Foundation is science fiction, the first almost purely sci-fi I have seen on TV for a long time. It doesn't rely on Flash, though Flash it has, to get its point across, and it's taking its time to build its world and its empire, letting the characters breathe a little before taking us forward into what is going to be a long-running series, if sources are to be believed. Around 80 episodes have been suggested from execs if this takes off, so let's hope Apple can do it justice. I admire the bravery of the creators. This must have been a hard sell for Apple, Asimov fans being few and far between nowadays, and I'm sure that there were other franchises to pin their hopes on that might have been a surer thing, so I wish them all the best going forward. This is Gizmo First. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.